And welcome to another edition of Big Daddy Linux Live. I am not Rocco.
And neither am I.
Dan is not Rocco. But Rocco is not going to be able to participate this evening. He is here. He's listening. He's making sure we're not going to do anything crazy. We would never do that.
No.
We've earned Rocco's trust. So he's unfortunately just unwell. He's not feeling up to hosting. So like I said, Dan and I are going to help out this evening and be gentle on us, I guess. So this is week 2 of Cubes, I believe.
Yes, this is week 2 of Cubes.
That's why Dan's here, because I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Oh. And like
Wing it.
The last week.
In case anyone couldn't have figured that out by now, I'll just be right up front.
We do have Zeb, so.
Yes, and Zeb is here as well. Everyone needs
he's well seasoned.
to say hello to Zeb as well. He's going to jump in from time to time, our good friend Zeb.
Good evening, everybody.
There he is.
Mm-hmm.
Zebedee Balls.
We missed you, friend.
Yeah, so just a quick question. Did we have a note of, I'm just reading it now. Just read the document before you ask the question. I was going to say, who went last week? And it's there in front of my nose. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and start with seeing who either has an update or who did get to try this week. So the first one, Dan, did you go last week?
No, I did not.
And did you get a chance to try it?
I did not. No, I had some hardware problems. I really am disappointed by it, though, because I wanted to kind of set up a workstation to just kind of leave there and leave secure, sort of the same sort of things I would think of you'd do with Tails, maybe, but, go a little above and beyond and just have it there ready to go so I could do some testing of things, but I didn't get a chance.
Gotcha. I'm in the same boat. I had every intention and just had one of those weeks where I literally had no time. And unfortunately, as much as I love participating, it's just didn't get the priority this week. So, Tony, you went last week. Did you have anything to add this week?
Only that I nuked it last week, so there's nothing to add.
Okay, fair enough. And go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's that's telling. Stephen, good evening. And do you have anything to add?
Good evening, Dan, Eric, Zeb, guys. No, I did not get a chance to try it. I was busy with work and some other stuff, so nah, unfortunately not.
Yeah, fair enough. Chris, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing well. Can't complain, really. Sorry I missed last week, but I was way too tired, and I was going up to Boston to see Blue Man Group, so I wanted to get some sleep so I wouldn't fall asleep on the road. But I did not do cubes. My hardware was not up for the task, and I'd have to go out and buy new hardware to actually do the distro challenge this week.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Well, Dan, I believe you did give some feedback last week, but did you get a chance to do anything else this week?
I wasn't even on last week.
Well, there's a Dan in the list, so. But as you see, there are 3 Dans here tonight, so that gets a little confusing. Okay, did you get a chance to try it then?
Which Dan?
You, Dan.
I had every intention of really working it over. I did get it installed, and I used the instructions they provided. I tried the Windows 10 with the Rufus route first, and I could not get it to actually load onto an SSD with that particular procedure they had listed. But as much as I hate using DD, I used the DD string just as they had it and unplugged everything in my machine. I didn't want disk destroyed.
Good idea. Hey, that's always a smart way to do it.
It put it on the USB stick, and I was able to get it onto a hard drive. Now, I did open it up and play with it a little bit. I got a few virtual machines open. Once you get a couple of them open, it really struggles from the template. I had family come into town over the past 2 weeks, and I've been busy with a lot of things, so I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with it. But I did try some virtual machines, and I had troubles getting data switched from one area to another. I had trouble getting on the internet, and I just did not have the time to read all their dialogue or watch a 2-hour video on how this works. But I wish I could have done you better, but I just didn't have the time.
Hey,
Ah,
you know
it's all
what?
good.
You gave it a try. It's more than I did, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
I
It seems to
did
be
look at it, and I did watch some videos on the different colored windows and what they're for, and there's a vault and all that stuff. And you know, I'm playing with this too. The mindset is, what am I going to do with this thing? This is for somebody special that needs this kind of special protection.
well, did you? Was there anything you learned from the experience? I mean, not just focus specifically on using it, but maybe just the concept behind it. Was there anything interesting you took away from it?
Well, let's see. It's made out of 3 or 4 distros at 2 distros a week. We should have had 8 weeks to play with it, but I know everybody give it the big, you know,
Yeah,
at 8 weeks.
I think the like you said, the amount of time maybe that it would take to really get this up and
Yes.
running, get to use it. It's maybe a little more than what we would expect normally.
I gave it just as much time, if not a little more, than the regular distros we did, and I
Yeah.
still could not absorb enough of it.
That's a fair point. Okay. All right. Well, Paul, I know last week you hadn't tried, or did you get a chance this week?
Last week I kept having issues with my internet cutting out on me, and then it went on for like 10 minutes. But so I've been playing with DDWRT, which is a Linux for my router, and so far it seems to be working good. But I do have an old modem. They told me that is end of life, but yet I'm grandfathered in, so I can use it, but
Hmm.
it's not a good modem.
Maybe not get as good a performance as you would with a newer one. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So
Well,
but
that's
so
cool.
far, yeah, it seems stable right now, so we'll see.
So
I didn't-
DDWRT, that's fun. Have you hadn't tried anything like that before?
A long time ago.
Okay.
That's how I knew about it. But yeah, it's I'm getting really good performance. I got my hard drive hooked up and everything.
Well,
Nice.
you're usually a quiet guy, but I think I might come back to you later. I want to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, I love DDD WRT. It's a cool program.
Nice.
Very cool. Colin, good evening. How are you?
Good. We are open for business.
Nice one.
Yeah, my stand pretty. I was going to try and open it and do a few things during the week. It is. I have to use it on my main system, which gets in the way of what I'm normally doing. I did open it up a couple of times, stared at it, opened some file managers. Didn't really know what to do with it besides open a Firefox on Fedora, open a Firefox on this one. I can see its use case, but for me, there wasn't really anything that I can tinker with that I normally do as far as a normal desktop goes. So it didn't really have any sort of use case for me during the week. Nothing excited me really about it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's probably works for someone out there anyway. But for me, yeah, I just struggled to find anything to do with it, to be honest. So a couple of times I opened it, that was it. I just thought, no, I'm pretty much done with that. So
Colin, I got more excitement out of your Arch Labs video.
yeah, thanks, Dan.
I actually duplicated everything you did, and it turned out great.
Oh, great. That's good. Yeah, it's not a bad distro, actually.
Cool.
And
Sounds good.
Rocco reported back in the chat that Colin's sign made him cough. So thanks a lot.
Sorry, Rocco.
Good stuff. Big Pod, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great.
And did you get a chance to try cubes?
No, definitely not.
Gotcha.
Just like last week. No thanks.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, like Dan and Eric had discussed, it's something you really kind of need to leave there and just kind of tweak on going. Let it go, and you got to have a use case for it too. So there it is.
Yeah, right. What's your plan, right? You're probably not going to just get in and kick the tires. You probably had an objective in mind, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I normally use virtualization on servers, so that's
Right.
where I relegate it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right. Eris, did you get a chance to go?
Yes, I tried it last week. It didn't install on my computer. It's not compatible with the hardware. I was very excited about cubes. I think it's probably the future. Like, it's probably gonna have more VMs for everybody just for security. But yeah, I couldn't really test it out.
That's an interesting point, as a technical exercise, that it could be that compartmentalized, right? Everything's segmented. We've kind of seen that a little bit with some of the universal package formats with containerization and isolation, sandboxing, things like that. So this is maybe it is a view of things to come.
I even think, just containers in general, maybe somewhere in the middle ground. Not sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense from the standpoint of things not being. Remember how, Internet Explorer, one of the biggest security issues many years ago was that it could just interact with the desktop and open files and just do whatever it wanted. And, web browsers today are all sandboxed so that they have very limited access to your desktop, because otherwise it's so easy to just take over your system. So that was an early example of something we use every day that takes, adopts that technology. So it makes sense that you would extend that out.
I think that the big, if I could just add something here, I think the big problem with this one, with this challenge, is the fact that it needs probably a minimum of 16 gigs to run. That's why I had to put it on an external hard drive with an SSD. With my system that's got 32 gigs, it runs beautifully on that. But I was running it on a 4 gig memory on desktop, and you only have to open one Firefox. That's it. You've got to log out or even restart to try something else, right? So I think that was a challenge within itself, probably, for this one, to be honest. So
and that may be
usage.
And maybe that speaks to the exercise of doing it, and then how do you actually implement it so that you could run it on a lower powered system? Yeah, the virtualization itself, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. All right.
Problem is using full virtualization and not containerization technologies like Snap, Docker, or Flatpak. Since it's using full virtualization, it's basically creating a virtual machine, or we could say a computer inside your computer every time you open a new program or open a new virtual machine. So that eats a lot of memory and a lot of CPU power right away.
The overhead of that, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and we saw that progression in the server world where everything was a virtual machine, right? And that's still prevalent, but now a lot of times the applications themselves are containers running on top of a layer, a virtualization layer. Instead of each one of those things being its own dedicated machine, now it only takes the amount of resources it needs to run. And it still, provides the same function, but it's much more clearly defined in scope and limited. So maybe we get there. Maybe that's something that we see in the future as well. So, Thomas, good evening.
Good evening. So I was able to force cubes to install in a virtual machine. So probably not the way it's supposed to be used, because a virtual machine inside of a virtual machine is not going to happen. I was definitely having errors thrown left and right when it was installing, saying like, "Hey, this instruction isn't there, so we can't do anything. Are you sure you want to install this?" I'm like, "Yes, go do it." I think someone who is much more well versed in Fedora would be able to install it and change the repositories so that you can actually install software from Fedora, because I think that's what the base OS is. But I am not that person, and I'm not about to rip my hair out trying to learn it. It runs. I guess I can't really do anything other than log in and play with the basic desktop environment, and open up terminal and do stuff in the terminal, but that's about it. So not super useful in a VM.
Now, you as a developer, though, did you see anything maybe that we wouldn't have? Like, was there something interesting to you that a normal user maybe wouldn't have picked up on?
So the one thing I definitely found interesting was, I'm not sure if this is actually how they do it, but it seems like their packages might actually, I'm not sure if their apps run in like a general virtual machine, like that one virtual machine runs all those apps, or if like a specific virtual machine is packaged with each specific app, so that like let's say Firefox, you want it to be more secure than something like a text editor, because the text editor doesn't try to access the internet any. I could see them doing that, and it would make a lot of sense. It would also mean that their packages were much larger, so it would probably take a lot of time to at least install it. I don't know if Fedora has the capability of doing Delta downloads, in which case updating, if it did, probably wouldn't take forever. But at the same time, I don't think it does, so updating probably takes forever because you're downloading massive multi-hundred megabytes for all these apps.
Yeah. Kind of like Flatpak would be in a way, right?
Right, but at the same time worse, because Flatpak has Delta downloads, if I'm not mistaken, and this would not. So it's like every update for every network accessing app, which in today's world is a lot of your apps. Just think about like Telegram, Discord, Firefox, you name it, VS Code. All of these have internet access. So they would all be these massive 400, 500 megabyte apps where, if I'm not mistaken, Telegram is like 15 megabytes in a snap. So it takes up next to no space. So I see on a computer that has very little hard drive space that it might potentially be a huge issue. Now, I could be completely wrong about this, and they could just have one general virtual machine that's set up to handle the worst case scenario, and you just install everything on that, and that would work perfectly fine. But at the same time, it's less modular, and the moment you start a single app, you've got that one virtual machine running, and it's probably going to stay running the entire time you're logged in, and not just like shut down in case you're doing something in the terminal, which at that point you start hogging resources for no good reason. So I like the concept, but it needs a lot of heavy optimization in order to make it actually usable for a more general audience. But I think the audience they're trying to target right now will understand the drawbacks of this and will be able to handle that.
Cool. Thank you very much, Thomas. Jason, good to see you back, but I see that you popped in chat already that you didn't have much to add to that. Is that still the case? Yeah.
That is still the case. Nothing to add.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Bill, we know you tried it. There's nothing else you're doing during the week. So how's it going, my friend?
So before I answer that question, is my audio good enough for me to talk?
Yeah, it's fine. Could
Okay.
be a little bit louder, but we can hear you nice and clear.
All right. So I did use it, and I've used it before, but like Dan knows, there is an interesting stuff that happened this week. And this kind of dovetails to a very interesting, I'll get back to cubes in a minute. So I was playing around with a couple of snaps that were made, and these were snaps that actually create some KVM systems that are Windows 10 and Mac OS. So it's very, very interesting where we're going in the field. But back to cubes. It's one of the things I think we make a mistake is we think every Linux distro is made for everyone, and they're not. This is a specific use case. And for that use case, it is wonderful. It needs refinement. On the Choose Linux podcast, Elle mentioned she uses this when she goes to security conferences because she'll get handed USB sticks that are who knows. So she can put it into a very secure, contained VM and see what's on there. For those kind of people, and for anyone doing that, it is great. For general usage, it's really fun to play with, but there is no one who doesn't fit its use case that's really going to find it useful. So
interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I must admit, I have looked at it in the past, got to about line 2 on how to do it, and gone next. As you say, it's just not for your average everyday user. But yeah, to have everything, and I don't know if container or cubed, let's say, have everything boxed in and secure and safe would be great. But then listening to what Thomas said, I sometimes have 15, 16 windows open at the same time. So does that mean I'm going to have a system that's going to have enough resources to run 15 or 16 virtual boxes all at the same time, all with, let's say, 2 cores and 8 gig of memory or something? I mean, cracky, even my Threadripper and 64 gig of RAM, I think, might struggle with something like that. So yeah, it sounds interesting, but you're right. It's very use case scenario.
It almost harkens back to the age of low memory systems, low power systems, where you had to sort of say, can I have all of these programs open at the same time, right? Because you had to pick and choose. And it's interesting to think back to that time, whereas our computers today on a general use basis are so overpowered most of the time that you can't bog it down. I mean, it's almost impossible. So, yeah.
Yep. Sounds about right. So thanks for that, Bill. Barbara, did you try it out?
No, I didn't. After listening to the problems other people had, and I still couldn't. It somehow, I was supposed to use like a 32 gig USB, and I couldn't get it on there either. I don't know. I was having problems with it. I mean, I used DD and it got on there, but it wouldn't run.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I am not going to waste my time with this because it won't fit my use case anyway. So that's what happened. And I think it's very, very particular in what system you even just want to, you want to use it on. And I tried to install it on my XPS 13. Granted, it's an older one, but it normally doesn't have a problem, and it wouldn't do it. I only have 8 gig of RAM in that one, so I guess maybe that was its problem. It just wouldn't do it. So I gave up.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Vince, how are you? And do you have anything to add to Cubes?
I'm very well, thanks, Dan. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Right.
Now, yeah, I gave Cubes a go, but not for very long because I also, like everybody else probably here, recognized that it wasn't really for my use case, but I can really appreciate the fact that it exists. I mean, because even a couple of years ago, living in my little Windows world before I went full-time with Linux, I had no idea that anything like this could even be made or that it even existed. So I can really appreciate the fact that open source allows such an operating system to be even built at all. I would implore anybody who is going to give this a try to read the documentation first. I think that is so important in this case. Otherwise, you're just going to end up frustrated and not knowing what to do. I think I might just keep it on a USB. I think like someone was saying before, and just poke at it every now and again, give it another little go, see what I can sort of make of it and see if I can find a use for it. I can understand how, for example, the whistleblowers of the world, the journalists of the world, or even the legal professionals of the world might find this useful if they're dealing with people that they have no idea where files are coming from, for example. So, I mean, I think it's a system that's built very well. I marvel at the skill and knowledge that's gone into building it. So it does get a thumbs up from me, even though I'm not going to be using it daily. And finally, to all you lot, if you're thinking of sending me some nefarious files, just give me the heads up first, and I'll build into Cubes for you.
Perfect. Good idea. I like it. All right. Thanks for that, Vince. Adam, good evening. And how are you?
I'm doing all right. How's it going?
Going all right. Did you get a chance to try cubes or no? No. Okay. I figured as much, but I had to ask.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. So, well, I
Hang on,
think
it looks like Dan's waving his hands in the air.
wait.
Oh,
I have one thing I forgot. This is what happens when I don't use the paper. Keep in mind when I downloaded this thing, it was 4.5 gigabyte ISO. I tried to load it onto a USB drive to transport it to a Windows machine to try the Rufus first. Well, I didn't realize why it would go most of the way through the load and then just freeze. Well, it turns out that, keep in mind, FAT32 filing system has a maximum file size of 4 gigabytes. And I did have some trouble with that. And I decided to bring this up just to bring it to surface so people remember it in the future.
Yep,
but because
absolutely.
you followed the DD instructions, that doesn't have.
This
that
is just to
limitation, so.
transport the ISO you downloaded. It's 4.5 gigabytes solid.
Right,
it's
but you
one file.
Right, but you were saying you were able to finally write it because you used DD, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what worked for me. But to transport it as a single 4.5 gigabyte file, it would not fit within the realm of FAT32.
You were trying to actually put it on a the file.
Am I the only one who formats their USB keys with NTFS for that single reason? Because so many files nowadays are over 4 gig. So I know NTFS is not the greatest medium in the world, but a lot of systems can read it now for file and copy. So the only time I ever use FAT32 is if a specific distro has said you need to have it set up in FAT32. All my USB drives, whether they're thumb drives or external, are NTFS.
Yeah, mine are too, Zeb. You're not alone.
The only time I won't use NTFS is if I'm giving a flash drive to a friend who has a Mac. And that's because last I checked, Macs can read NTFS, but they cannot write to it. I don't know if that's changed recently, but that's the last I checked.
You still need to have extra software to be able to do it.
Yeah, so I'll tend to just give them a FAT32 one because I also had a friend who had a Mac who tried reading an ext4 partition, and it tells you it's ext4, can't read or write to it. That's all. That's all it knows, and that's actually more than Windows knows. So kudos. But
because that's weird, because I haven't had that problem with my Mac.
I think it was probably an older version of Mac OS. This was a few years ago.
Yeah, because if they're running the current version or even the release before, it will see ext4, even ext3.
Yeah. So I think it was just an older version.
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone have any final thoughts? I mean, I know we just went through, but okay. Yeah, I think that what we've figured out in the last few challenges is that there are definitely some specialist Linux distributions out there that are serving, again, very focused, specific groups, audiences, solving very specific problems. And so, our feedback on this has literally almost nothing to do with the distro itself. It's really our use of it. And so, as always, the disclaimer is that there's nothing wrong with the distro. It's serving the purpose it serves. None of us here have that purpose. And so that's why we've sort of run into the situation we have. And so thank you to the developers of Cubes for putting out this distro. The people that use it, I can only imagine, find great utility in it and probably great comfort in the fact that they have a system that can be this secure and fill a need that it doesn't appear that any other distro is really out there filling. So great job and thanks.
Yeah, just one final thing I'd like to add. I think it's great that there are distros out there like this, especially for somebody like me to sort of bring me crashing back down to the ground, because you just get to the stage where you think, hey, I actually am starting to understand Linux now, and I know how it goes and where it works. And then all of a sudden, boom, the real Linux experts rears its head and goes, "Hey, Zeb, just sit back down, son. You really haven't got a clue." And yes, whilst I might be a good general Linux user, as far as knowledge base is concerned, I'm still a noob, and it's applications and ISOs like this that prove that concept, and that there really is a whole nother level of expertise. And if only I could get there, I think I could have that much more enjoyment out of things like cubes and other ones that we've come across. So it was a nice, humbling experience, I think, to read up about it and go, no, 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 don't touch it, Zeb. You'll only wreck what you've got. So that was all good.
But I hear two things in there, though, Zeb, because I hear one, Linux it can be anything that you want it to be, right? It is literally just that kernel, and then you put whatever tools you want. It can be as thin as an IoT device that is, working with extremely limited resources and has a single task to perform, to a supercomputer, right? It can do everything. And the other thing I heard is that we as desktop users know what we know, but it's also gotten to a point where just about every distro we try on here, most people can get it set up, running, and in a usable state in some matter of minutes, and have at least some amount of success with it. It's amazing to me to see how far we've come in a relatively short amount of time. And again, just the flexibility of what can be done with Linux in general.
Mm-hmm. Thomas, you wanted to say something?
Yep. Yeah. So I heard something else that Zeb said that brought a memory to me that I think is something that we should also think about. So he was talking about how Zeb, you were talking about how you felt like you really knew Linux now, and then all of a sudden, you realize you know a decent amount, but there's so much more you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my science teachers said something similar. There's the amount that we know. And then just beyond that, there's the amount we know we don't know. And then there's so much more that we just straight up don't know at all. And I see this myself. As a developer, I know what I know, but I can't tell you like how the Linux scheduler works or some of the other inner workings of the Linux kernel. But there's so much more that I just don't know that I haven't even fathomed yet. And I can see how I've grown, how those horizons have expanded. And I think part of the journey of using Linux is expanding those horizons and understanding more about how Linux works and realizing, hey, these things are possible because of this feature or because of the way we do this or because we don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that by the time I have like kids or by the time I'm in a rest home or something like that, that I will understand exponentially more about Linux than I do now, because I'm hoping to learn more. And I've seen over my 6 years of Linux, I have learned more. And that's something that I think new Linux users should have exposed to them. Like, yes, you're going to come into this and you're not going to know a thing that's going on. You're going to be so lost.
You're going to like tonight's choice then, Thomas, because it's all about learning.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's what we need.
So with that, I've got to give some credit to Big Pod here. Big Pod coined a term, and I'm going to put a little spin on it. I'm going to say that we're not going to use the Draugr Wheel of Misfortune this week, and we're just going to kind to make the command decision. And this week's challenge will be Arco Linux. Now, I am going to go out on a pretty sturdy limb and say that there will be something for everyone here, and hopefully, though, everyone takes away the great learning that is available to you with this challenge as well, because there are a plethora of YouTube videos available, and documentation and lots of articles online. So I think everyone will get something out of this challenge.
Mm-hmm. And just so that you know, you can literally try any version of Arco you want. And if possible, although you're going to go back and tell us about Arco, tell us also about your learning experience. Did you find that what you did was good for you? Or are you happy that Eric has got like these 3 mediums whereby you can just grab Arco, which gives you XFCE, OpenBox, and i3? Or did you go for one of his B spins where you can pick any desktop you want and just install it? Or did you go the real deep dive route, install a basic system, run through his scripts, and what did you end up, and was it usable? So I think there's going to be, as Dan said, something for everybody there. And just to give you a quick heads up, please don't start at video 1, because we'll see you next year when you watch them 1 a week. He's done something like over 1,400 videos, is it now?
It's unreal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're also assuming that everybody knows what Arco is, right? We haven't actually explained it. So it's Arch based. And yes, the developer, Eric, what's his last name, Zeb?
Eric Dubois. Dubois.
Dubois, I'm sorry.
Dubois, yeah.
So what he gives you, or what's available to you, is everything from starting from literally just a simple install and building up yourself. And he can guide you through all of those steps. The documentation on the website is sort of very step-by-step. Or you can download a pre-configured desktop environment of your choice. So if you have a specific one you'd like to use, it's all there. You can download that and install it. So it's a wide range of available options. So pick what's comfortable for you. If you haven't used it before and you just want to get in and kick the tires, then you can go for the full download. Is that the B or the D?
No, that's the basic Arco Linux, which is then XFCE, OpenBox, and i3. You can boot into any one of those 3. And that's just like you would download Ubuntu or Endeavour or anything. It's just a standard, no, nothing that Eric does is standard, but that's the simplest route to go.
And as Zeb alluded to, so there's the website, which has a tremendous amount of information. It can be a little confusing because there are several websites. So you kind of have to, what's the best starting one? Is it the .info?
No, the arcolinux.com. I think Bill dropped a chat in Zoom for us, and then Dan popped it into YouTube.
Okay. So if you start there and just sort of look through, he takes you through, and then Zeb alluded to the videos. So he has hundreds of videos on any topic you could imagine, from as specific as how do I do this one thing to as general as what is Arco Linux, how do I use it. And so depending on your preference, you have video content, you have the website content. And so it really is, it's an amazing body of work for one person to have put together. And it's incredibly active. And it's also, I think it's an interesting introduction for people to Arch who haven't maybe used Arch, who aren't comfortable just running plain Arch. And Zeb had actually said before we got on, how did you characterize it, Zeb? I mean, you can run plain Arch, but this sort of gives you that leg up, or?
Yeah, what I said was that I can install Arch, but then I've got to install all the little applications, tweak the system settings, adjust this, adjust that. And no matter how good I get at Linux, I then, because I went the trip of doing Arco Linux D Plasma, and I got it installed. I went through all of his scripts, put up what I wanted, and I'll save it for next week because it's very, very interesting. But you can do what you want, how you want. But Eric gives all those little tweaks and nuances that the experts can give you, but might take you, as Thomas said, a few decades to learn, or at least in his case, probably just another 5 years and he'll be up there. But in someone like me, will be another 20 years and I might get there. So yeah, there's something for everyone.
Has anyone here used or is using Arco that could give any pointers, just as a quick overview?
Yeah, I think Sleepy's getting all excited there.
Just a little excited. Actually, I wanted to add, if I'm not mistaken, next week is Euro Biddle, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
So, I mean, I think it'd be fantastic if we might even get Eric on. Just saying. I think, was it Zeb, you guys had Eric on Destination Linux at one point in time?
We certainly have, yeah. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, I've seen not all of his videos, but a few. I would probably suggest that if you're not sure what you're doing, to go with the full ISO first. That has basically everything that you need and it works straight out of the box. But if you're more adventurous, go through and find an ISO that you like. I would also say that the websites can be a little confusing. He's even made videos to navigate the websites, which I find a little bit hilarious. But yeah, just a little bit of patience is involved, but I think most of you guys will probably find it quite enjoyable as well.
Something that I really took away from it when I was using it was a lot of times he'll just point you to a script. And if you open the script and look at it, it's very plain and easy to follow and see exactly what kind of commands he's running, like how this is actually building the system in the background. So often, especially installers, it's very opaque, right? You don't see a lot of what's happening. You're picking options and you're telling it where to go. Maybe there's some granularity around which packages you're installing, but ultimately you don't really see the nuts and bolts. Whereas with this, again, as a learning opportunity, you can really see what's going on your system.
Mm-hmm. So I think we'll have lots to talk to or talk about in the coming 2 weeks. So I think it's going to be a good challenge. Yes, Bob.
Okay, I just downloaded it, and unlike some of the other distros that we've downloaded, which seem to take forever, this was done really, really quickly, and that really impressed me. Just that's the first thing I noticed.
He has amazing mirrors.
Yeah, and this thing just boom. From the time we decided that we were going to do it, I went and I cruised around, found out where to download it, and downloaded it, and it's done.
Well,
how big is it? Because you could have downloaded just the command line one.
Let's see. Why don't I just look at it over here? Duh. I know. It is
1.5 gig.
2.1.
Oh, yeah, okay.
2.1, Barb. You're right.
Yeah. So that is the right one. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's noticed, but Tony looks like he's hard at work.
I was going to say he's concentrating. He must be halfway installed it already.
Oh, probably. I just downloaded it, and it didn't really take any time at all. Yeah. So I was impressed with that.
I will just give you one little word of warning about it. Calamares have made some ridiculous changes lately. So although Arco is the simplest, I'm pretty sure that he has implemented the new Calamares installer. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a software shop before you get the distro installed. So you pick Arco, and then you say, right, which one of these 54,000 apps that I've got in the list? Okay, it's not that many, but there's a lot of apps in the list. Do you want to install? So I found it very reminiscent of MX's package manager, their package installer, where you can just tick a box, and when you've got the distro up and running, a lot of your packages will already be installed. So you can, of course, ignore that. You can just install the distro and then install your software as normal. But he's made it even easier to get involved in Linux. It's awesome.
I believe this part where you can select what share package to install, I believe this is actually specifically implemented by him. There is an option by the people who made Calamari, especially because of the free office problem with Manjaro. Mm-hmm. So they implemented the software chooser, and what Eric did, he basically allowed to choose whatever package you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll just expand on that a little bit. They implemented they call it the package chooser module, and so you can. Here's the beauty of Arch, right? So you have all of the packages that are available in Arch, and you can pull them across and install them through the installer. And so it installs them, over the network, obviously. So you need a network connection. It's not an offline sort of thing, but it is really neat, and the options are somewhat limitless based on the fact that so much is available to you.
And just on those options, it also depends on which ISO you choose. If you
Yes.
choose
Yep.
the full fat ISO, you get fewer options because there's
Right.
more out of the box. But if you choose the Arcalytics D ISO, where it's more minimal, you'll have a ton more. So you got to know what you want to choose before you go about getting that ISO.
The
At this point,
Arco
I'd like to
Linux team does contribute a ton to Calamares, and
yes.
I a lot of the success in that package chooser module is because of the things they're pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to issue a challenge to Sleepy and everybody who has either used Arca or used Arch to do what Eric calls BYOI, which is build your own ISA with Arca specific tools or specific scripts to pre-package the packages into the ISA, and basically you have everything out of the box.
Wow. So a challenge within a challenge. I like it, Big Pod.
Well, it is a 2-week
Because
challenge, so
it
you know,
isn't really a
Mhm.
challenge for me and Sleepy because we already use it.
okay, then we
Mhm.
know who to bug whenever we have problems.
Yep.
The thing is, he makes it so very easy to learn how to do it, and that's the big plus of this distro.
Yeah, and I think his teacher background comes into the
Yes.
form.
Absolutely.
He, as you say, he lays it out in plain English, step by step, and I think he's one of the few people where I've actually read a document and thought, "Wow, he didn't miss a step out." Because normally, somewhere along the line, somebody goes from A to F, and you think, "Well, what happened to B, C, D, and E?" But he clearly marks them out one at a time. But it will take a lot of reading to get through it. So if you don't fancy doing that, straightforward Arco, and away you go. It'll be fantastic.
All right, Bill, you had a topic to bring up.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about some snaps that I used. So this week, Eric, you were on, Adam was on, we were harassing Popey on a live stream he was doing. He was doing a test of Ubuntu Studio. I was on that stream watching it on a Mac OS, Catalina, installed in a snap. And it's a pretty interesting topic. So there are 2 snaps that came out this week. Alan created one called Sosumi, really funny name, that installs Catalina in a KVM snap. And Dan Llewellyn came up with one called Clouds, which uses some of the same YAML, snap YAML stuff, but it installs a Windows 10 system in a KVM. So it's really interesting what you can do in a snap. So basically what these snaps are they create a KVM interface for you with all the setup that you need. So it'll set up your audio device, your storage device, all these good things, so you don't have to go through it. Then it launches out a connection to Apple servers or Microsoft servers based on the one you're doing, and downloads an ISO directly from them to your system. You mount that ISO mounts automatically. You do the install, and you have Catalina system running, or you have a Windows 10 system running.
So that sounds really familiar to a script I found on GitHub. The Sosumi one, is that related in some way?
Yeah, that's Alan's. I believe that's Alan's script, because I know he's got everything up on GitHub for that snap.
Okay, because I had run something like this mid last year, and it did the same thing. It sets up a KVM. Anyway, I just wasn't sure if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't know that part. Maybe Alan didn't tell me that he's copying other people's great work. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's open source, right?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. The part of it that's really awesome is anybody can do it. You don't really need a skill set. We're talking about cubes a minute ago, where it wasn't easy. So if I wanted to run a Windows VM, you have a video that talks about all you have to do. It's not a lot, but to set up VirtualBox, get it installed, do this, do that. This is boom, and it's, we talked about the licensing, and the Snap doesn't have anything in it. It actually is grabbing from Microsoft or Apple the ISO and bringing it down. So it doesn't have. It's not.
It's not distributing.
Yeah, it's not distributing the packages or the operating system, but it's just, the reason it's really interesting to me is there is a conference going on next week at WSL. It got affected by the coronavirus and now is a virtual only conference, and that's Microsoft. Ubuntu's very involved in it. I just thought it was really interesting that I could throw on a 2004 server, add this Snap, boom, have Windows open, add WSL. And it's sort of that inception idea. And we were just doing that with cubes in a way. So it brings back how awesome stuff like Flatpak and Snap really are to the community. All this software that is out there that I'm like, oh, it's Arch only. I can only run it on Arch. I can only run this on Fedora. I can now have most of that available to me in a Flatpak, a Snap, an app image, and that makes Linux so usable. This stuff is cool. It is awesome. I mean, I've never played with Catalina. I've had a lot of Mojave experience, but I never saw Catalina till this week. And it's just awesome to sit here on an ancient ThinkPad running 2004, running Mac OS that would never run on this thing, even if I did a Hackintosh. But it just brings back how awesome the universal package format can be to take Linux to that next level.
It goes back to the virtualization aspect, right? I mean, we just talked about cubes virtualizing things, and yeah, I mean, the way it's possible, obviously, is because the virtualized hardware to Catalina seems like a legit PC, and that's why it's going to run, or a legit Mac, I guess. I could see this being really useful for software testing. If you had software that you had to test on multiple operating systems, I'll tell you that just in running the Catalina install myself in a KVM, it's not native performance. It's not, it's not like you're sitting in front of a Mac. It's approximates it well enough that you can at least use it to test things. And
oh yeah, it's the really nice part is you open up Safari and you have that Safari access to go for like what you do with the websites you're building for people. You can see that in Safari.
Yeah, I mean, I don't own a Mac, so I mean, even if I had Windows, it wouldn't matter. I don't have a Mac. I'd have to own a Mac in order to do that testing. So to be able to virtualize it, it's a great tool for that. I guess I was tempering people's expectation that it's really, at least for me, and I'm on a relatively powerful system. I found it to be, a little muddy.
And one of the things you can do is you can go in and work on the YAML, and you can add RAM to it. You have to work through a little bit, so it gives you a system. But if you want to access USB slots, you're going to have to go through and add some pass-throughs. So,
but you can use Vertman to manage the machine, though, right? I
have not yet tried Vertman with these snaps. I've just been running them as is a test to. Actually, right now, as we're talking, Dan is actually doing some stuff with his Snap because it's doing something funky with Windows. It works fine. It just has a little funkiness. So I'm actually talking to Dan a little bit about some of the stuff on his Snap. So it's also that great thing that we have in this community is Alan comes on the show. You can talk to Alan. You can go into, the Ubuntu podcast Telegram group and talk to the person who made this Snap. And the same thing, you can go to Destination Linux group, and there's a lot of developers there that you can get, not FaceTime, but you can get chat time with people who are making programs. And it is just so awesome. And most of the time, if you are nice, you are going to get help. And that's the biggest thing. If you are not nice, you may not get help. But if you're just a polite, normal person and say, I have a problem, I go in here, you're gonna get people to help you. Look in the the Biddle chat. People have issues all the time, and people are so helpful. It is awesome. Even Adam is helpful. I mean, amazing as that is.
Bill, just a quick question, and/or anyone who knows that. It was interesting that Eric brought up Vert Manager, because I'm not a virtual manager fan, but I found that when I was running Vert Manager on Tumbleweed, it was a fantastic experience. Stupidly so that I actually got 16 virtual machines up and running all at the same time. So
Cool.
just because
Oh,
I wanted to test the.
I remember the screenshot of that. Is that what that was from?
That's what that was from. But what I find interesting is snaps are, excuse my poorly worded technology, but aren't they their own little container themselves? So if you've got Snap running Windows, for argument's sake, how will you get Vert Manager to interact with it? Because I know that when I use the Snap for OBS, all of the information is held somewhere different. So I guess it's just a case of learning where that is and then pointing Vert Manager at it, or would you have to run Vert Manager within the Snap, which you couldn't do because that was Windows? See, this is where I get a little bit confused in how that would work.
Snap itself isn't Windows. Snap itself is just a container which contains the part of it is Windows. So
yeah, I get that bit, but how would I connect Vert Manager to it?
Could be inside it could be an instance of Vert Manager. That's option 1. Option 2 is Vert Manager itself can connect in a client on your system, can connect to any server you have a specific link to. Which
If the ports are open, yeah.
Which the correct ports are open. So technically, you could connect to the instance inside the Snap with your own client installed on your system. But it probably, if it has it, probably has it inside the Snap. It has, beside the Windows installation, it also has a small instance of Vert Manager.
I'll probably be testing it out just to see. But even if you couldn't use VertMan, excuse me, as long as you can get to the YAML files, it's really not that challenging. The format itself, it's very specific with spacing, so you have to make sure everything's in the right.
So we're talking.
Go ahead.
We're talking about the Snap VM things.
Yeah.
I'm actually running those both right now. Mac OS in classic Mac OS form takes a million years to install. But Windows is actually up and running, and the performance is pretty great in these things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Much better than it was when I remember what you were talking about, Eric.
Yeah,
we had both tried that out. This is better performance from what I remember.
Okay.
At least in Windows. Again, Mac is taking forever like it always does. So.
Well, Adam, you know why you're getting such good performance right now?
Because I'm on 2004.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly why. Yeah.
Eric,
that's precisely why.
Sorry, Eric. So you mentioned Vert Manager, and we had a discussion this week based just on Vert Manager and virtual machines crashing. So there's still a lot of learning curves to do. What I'm referring to with Eric is, so if you install, anything that there's a libstreamer G right now can cause your X session to crash as soon as that application start. So the application could be like a welcome screen or GNOME software, and it affects certain things. It affects Ubuntu Mate, and it affects Ubuntu Budgie right now that off the top of my head. So there's still, some of this stuff is learning, like Zeb just mentioned about Vert managing these. I don't honestly know. I'm sure that as testing goes on and we bug people like Alan, that we can find out, this is how we can get Vert Manager to run this. So the more people that are using this and they see that usage, they can use that evil term of monitoring the snap usage. If they see people using these snaps, they're going to spend more time developing them and adding features, getting it dialed in. And the more that you can go to the Snapcraft forum, and say, this is what I'm seeing with this snap. Can I get help? Or maybe this is how I can make it better?
Yeah.
Adam mentioned the speed. So I put mine on the Windows Insider Fast Track. And I mean, it's really neat. And it's so easy. It's basically, you have to connect the KVM. It's one command line just to get the access to the snap, because that's not built in immediately, which they're working on actually getting that authorization from the snap to have that built into it. But it is so cool. It is just neat. And the testing aspect, the fun aspect, it's that fun part of computing. I don't have a Mac, but I can play with a Mac right now. I installed Zoom in it. I don't have, I just played with it. I don't have audio input working yet. Sound is great, but I have Zoom, Discord in a Mac, which I don't own an Apple product that can run that. So it's just cool. It's fun. It's like what we're doing with, distros. We're seeing new cool stuff, and these universal packaging applications let us do that so easily.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we have a new guest with us tonight, Dan Lawton. How are you tonight, sir? Oh,
You're muted, Dan. There you go. That's better.
There he is.
I hit the button and I realized I hit the wrong button.
That's okay.
First of all, I'd like to thank Zebedee Boss and his team for the excellent work they've done on the Pinebook Pro. It's been a wonderful machine for me to use as a go-to device on the go. Used it running my business, and I've sprung for the got it right here, as a matter of fact, the NVMe add-on device, and I'm about to shoehorn a 120 gig NVMe drive in there, and find me an OS to put on it, some form of Linux, of course, and be a little less painful to use than the existing Debian, which doesn't let you mount any drives even as root.
Well, I haven't used it personally, but I keep hearing people say that the Manjaro version of ARM is pretty decent. I don't have that first-hand experience. Thomas is nodding. I don't know if anyone else can give you a.
I ran it on the Rock Pro 64. The only issue I had, and this was a known issue with Manjaro, every time I went to update, when it hit updating Linux firmware, the package, it would freeze and nothing would happen. And apparently this has to do with their bootloader. You just have to wait until they refresh the ISO, which I think they've already done. I don't know if they did that for the Rock Pro 64, but just wait until they update the ISO and it will be fixed.
Alrighty, good to know. I guess I'll try Manjaro on it. This snap that y'all been talking about is basically a replacement for VirtualBox.
Well, it's a way to create an instance of either Windows or Mac OS using virtualization tools. I guess you can say similar to VirtualBox. It's KVM, and it'll set up the whole instance for you, and then give you a way to run that as a virtual machine.
Nice. I'm using it on some of my clients' machines to securely handle some applications that are honestly old enough to drink, and drive a person to do so. They require the latest version that they will run on is Windows XP. They won't run on anything else in compatibility mode, nothing.
Well, you won't have a problem with if you have a copy of XP running that in a virtual machine. I've done that, and it works pretty well. Yeah.
So basically, I've got 4 VMs running on a server, and the server has Samba 1 turned on. That's accessible to VirtualBox, and then the virtual machines can sit there and are on a separate subnet, and they can chatter to each other and to the server, and that's it. And meanwhile, the rest of the server talks to the network at large via NFS or NFS, I think. And the only problem is I had with it was when unfortunately I had found a bug in Simple Help software and accidentally clobbered the /USR file system. Whoops. It wasn't showing any dialog boxes in the command console, so I couldn't tell half of the time what I was doing. And I've since reinstalled the server one weekend and got it all back and running. The problem I have now is with Ubuntu 18.04 on there, suddenly I have no mouse cursor, at least visible. I can move the mouse around and I can actually click on things, but I can't see what I might be clicking on before I click.
Is this through a remote connection software?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh my. Okay.
And I'm trying to install the remote software so that hopefully I might be able to operate it by remote.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're having trouble with Simple Help, try AnyDesk if you have an interest in that. Or just look it up and see what you think. If you haven't tried it, that might be an option for you. I don't know if it runs on XP, but it might.
It doesn't need to run on XP. The virtual
Just the server.
machines,
Okay.
the server needs to runs 1804.
Okay.
I have my own machines. As a matter of fact, the one I use for deployment with Red Cross and the local agencies when a disaster strikes runs Kubuntu 1804. The machine in front of me, since it has NVIDIA hardware in it, I wound up setting up Pop! OS. And I've got multiple network devices on it running simultaneously to make sure that the bug that I seem to have found in the networking stack on Pop! OS doesn't wind up leaving me dead suddenly when I'm doing a stream or a phone call or something like that.
So, Dan, just to let you know, DJ Ware, who comes on the show, he's a pretty technical guy. He said he runs Manjaro ARM, and it works really well in the Pinebook Pro. So,
excellent. Look
Sounds
forward
good.
to giving it a spin on there, and just won't be this weekend. Probably next or the one after that.
Well, if you come join us again, we'd love to hear how it goes for you.
I've got a ye old Pixel XL. I need to drop a modern operating system in now that Google's actually left it in the dust, and some other stuff around here that's been sitting and waiting for me to get around to it. So
cool.
All right.
You mentioned
Thank you much.
1804 there a couple of times. Eric, perfect intro for you, my friend.
What do you know? I'm going to call on help from Mr. Grubbs on this one. Well, and there's also some other Ubuntu, related people here, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they are. Yeah.
No, I don't either. This show isn't known for liking Ubuntu very much. So anyway, I'm joking. So I'd been waiting.
I'll wave money at them if they can fix it.
Ubuntu
I'll
fanboys.
send it to them too.
I am a shameless Ubuntu fanboy. I have been for a very long time. I make no bones about it. But I like to test the new releases, and the funny enough, the bug that Bill mentioned, not well, I guess we're calling it a bug. The conflict I had, kept trying to use Ubuntu 2004 in a virtual machine just to check it out, and I could not get it to get an X session. I could go into Wayland, but it wouldn't work on X. And I just figured, well, it's early on. This was like a month and a half ago, and I thought, well, I'll just give it some time and come back to it. And then I tried again a couple weeks ago, and it still didn't work. And I thought, this is really weird that I can't be the only one running into this, right? So anyway, we figured out what that was. Like Bill said, there is a known issue and a bug, and there's an easy way to work around it for the time being. But I normally wait until feature freeze to actually put it on hardware and try to use it. And so I did that this past week. It's been about 5 days, I'd say 4 or 5 days, and it is pretty flippin' amazing. I have to say, I've really, I know that's a very non-specific way to express that, but having been using GNOME and Ubuntu 19.10 and GNOME on Arch and other distros, seeing the new changes that are coming in 3.3.6 and the new theming in Ubuntu and just some of the changes that have been made, this is going to be an LTS release, so it's going to be around for quite a while. And when you think of an LTS release in those terms, you know it has to be good, right? Not only solid, not only technically good, but you want it to be a representation because Ubuntu or Dell and hardware manufacturers, they generally tend to ship the LTS releases of things. So this is a really important release. And from what I've seen so far, I mean, it's just been a joy to use. This laptop I have has hybrid graphics, the Optimus stuff, Prime Select and all that works perfectly. The battery life is good. The only issue I ran into is there's a problem with the 5.4 kernel right now and the display configuration where I can just adjusting the brightness on this particular laptop and some other laptops as well, it seems. So the suggestion was try a different kernel. And so I did. I'm on 5.6 something, 5.6.7, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I tried it 5.5.7, I think is what I'm on. So I have a different kernel. And that was the only issue I've run into, literally. There's been some bugs. Things will come up and send bug reports, but that's the point of this, right? Is to get in and test it. And so even though we're still 6 or 7 weeks or something like that out from release,
thereabouts.
I'm astonished at how good this is already. And you can probably tell I'm just a little bit excited about.
Well, you say it's ready now. I tried Ubuntu Budgie literally the first week after they started telling us that 2004 was going to be rebased and the daily ISOs came up. And I installed Ubuntu Budgie thinking, okay, we're going to find some errors here, but hey, let's just get in there and issue some bugs. Installed it, put all my software up, ran it, and I had to go back and check. Did I download the correct ISO? Did I accidentally download 1804? Because I have a feeling that 2004 is going to eclipse, for me, 1404, which was for me my de facto Linux that just worked. 1604 came out and it was good, but didn't quite have that edge that 1404 did. 1804 came out, it was even better. 2004 has come out and I've tried every single variant now. And all I can say is, wow, this is going to rock. Seriously.
Yeah.
I think so, and I might be a little biased as well, but I know we've all been behind the scenes, hammering away at a lot of the bugs. So I think the interim releases, at least for Ubuntu anyway, have been great. But this is going to be our first release, LTS release, that we have LXQt. So I think once we get the LTS behind us, then we can get a little more adventurous and get some of the other things in there that we need to. I think, when we came out with LXQt in 1810, it was rough around the edges. I'm not going to lie. And I think everybody here noticed it too. because we did test it, and I think incrementally we've been making improvements to that, and so hopefully by the time 2004 comes out in a few weeks, everybody will notice a big difference there too. So,
but Dan, it's fair to say that, I mean, LXQt at that point was so new.
yeah, it's still fairly new as far as desktop environments. So, and there is a lot of development there. So I think that's exciting for us too going forward. But we're not the only flavor that's been doing that. I see a lot of things in Mate. Like you look at the 1910 release for Mate, and there were a lot of bug fixes and stuff there too. And I think all of the flavors are in the same boat. So it will be an exciting time, I think, for everyone. So yeah, I'm excited as well.
So there.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Eric.
no, Bill, I wanted to hear from you, but I'm going to call Adam in too because he's been doing some testing. Go ahead.
So there's some big. Oh, go. I'm going to be quiet. I was just going to say. So there's some big stuff going on. Dan just mentioned this is the first LTS on their on the rebase for LXQT. GNOME has a major upgrade, and GNOME is going to be on I think it's 3.36 is going to be the release. Monte is now at 1.24. XFCE is going to be at 4.14 on an LTS release. I'm going to get the budgie number wrong, and I think Kubuntu is going to be on 5.18. I can't remember for sure, but you have all this great stuff, and I'm going to throw somebody under the bus here because they didn't say anything about how much hard work they do. I basically can sit in Ubuntu's development channel and see someone who is on this chat working their butt off almost every day to bring Ubuntu to everybody. And I think sometimes we forget the hard work that people are doing every day. And Dan does so much, and he doesn't toot his own horn, and he needs to toot it a little bit more because he is doing a lot of work. That whole team is doing a lot of work. The Kubuntu every team out there is working hard. They are small teams, and they are doing a tremendous job.
Well, and it's also a moving target too, because you guys are basing on something that isn't done, right?
Yeah.
So you're keeping up with all the changes of the Ubuntu base, and you're trying to put your stuff on top of it, and you're collaborating with other projects who are doing the same thing, other flavors. So yeah, it's this time I'm sure is just crazy.
It is. The flavor collaboration is pretty fantastic, as Bill alluded to. So that's pretty great as well.
Yeah. So Adam is the one that sort of pushed me over the edge. He was like, "Come on, you know you want to do it. You know you want to try it." I'm like, "No, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait." And then he's like, "Come on, I've tried it. It's so good. You have to try it." So Adam, let's hear it.
Everybody, don't download it. I like having all the bandwidth. So no, but it's a really great release. GNOME 3.36, and a good portion of it can be attributed to the GNOME guys too. That it's not just canonical, like it's a community thing, right? It's a lot of moving parts here. GNOME 3.36 is really great. I think the performance, like everything is so smooth. Like I haven't had any kind of like stuttering or hitching or anything, and it's like, man, what a dream. And like even things like playing Stadia games, for example, in the browser, which I'm using the Chromium Snap for, and that just plays really smoothly. Even on Windows, I get like occasional stutters that aren't network stutters. They're kind of like video stutters, and I don't have any of that on Ubuntu 2004. It's super smooth. Games play really smoothly. I know, Zeb, you were having trouble with ETS2 earlier, and I tried that out, and it was super smooth. Like just, yeah, it's been an awesome experience, like using it, right? And the stability,
Thanks,
like
Adam.
you guys were talking about, like Zeb had mentioned Ubuntu Budgie, like having to do a double take, like did I download the right one? And that's kind of how it's been. Like I had, when I first installed it, I had some bug report crashes things for like Tracker, which I think is like a file indexer, and I sent the bug report, and it's like, hey, everybody else has already done this, so okay. And that's the only one I've encountered, actually. I haven't had anything else crashing. Installing the NVIDIA drivers. I got the 4D drivers in the driver utility, so that was really easy. Now they do prioritize snaps over pretty much everything else in the software center, which take it or leave it, but I think snaps are great. And just the whole snap thing is actually kind of an advantage, right? Because historically, when you would try out a development release or even just a brand new release, you'd have to wait for all of your PPAs and third-party repos to catch up. But with snaps, I can get all the latest versions of most of the software I use without having to wait for the PPA to be put up. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, snaps are definitely better than PPAs. I mean, I'm not trying to disparage PPAs. They have their place. But if every piece of software that you download is another PPA, then it gets really messy. So,
correct. But it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to Adam there for mentioning that ETS2 runs perfectly on your Ubuntu GNOME. Makes me feel really good, mate.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's what I'm here for. Aims to please.
That's right. So he's just basically said it's used.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's my
Works
Threadripper
on my
that's
machine.
rubbish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. That sounded like a developer. Well, it works here.
Yeah.
Works on my machine.
You know all about that, right? Oh my! So the only other person I want to check with is Barb, because I know how much she loves Ubuntu Mate. So have you had a chance to look at the 2004?
Not yet.
Okay.
I mean, I'm running 1910 now,
Okay.
but I haven't looked at it yet. I was going to give it a little bit more time, and then I was going to put it on one of my machines.
I think now's the time.
Now's the time? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to wait, Barbara. I mean,
I don't have to wait, then I know which one what machine it's
If
going
Budgie
on.
was anything to go by, it's going to be incredible.
Well, and the guy that heads up Mate, he has a little bit of sway over there now. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yes, is the current version going to be updatable to the LTS?
Yeah.
2004, yes.
This is my problem. I get a pre-released Ubuntu. I start to really like it, but I can't get to the one they're going to release for good.
That's a comment. I keep seeing that question, Dan. That's actually a good call out. So how does that happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you can continue to update, and you will just turn into 2004 when it officially rolls out. Keep in mind, though, there are still bug fixes that are taking place, and some things will change. So it's not yet released. So you got to kind of be a little careful. But if you have it on, a spare hard drive, another machine or whatever, and you just keep rolling through the updates, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and Dan, is it right that it's normally at the 2004.01 that the upgrade path from 1804 will come along?
That's correct. That'll be when that's available. You can force it beforehand, but it's not necessarily advisable. So yeah, when the first dot release, 2004.1 gets put out, then you will be able to update from 1804.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess that's a bit like using the daily ISOs. You do so at your own risk. So updating 1804 to 2004 before they've spent those 3 months ironing out the bugs, I guess, or getting some other bits and pieces ready, you're better off waiting if you want to update your main system.
Yeah, and just to be perfectly clear here, so the people that have tried it already, a couple things. I think all of us already are pretty well versed with Ubuntu. We didn't just randomly go download it as either first time or someone who doesn't maybe understand how some of this stuff is. And we all recognize that at any point, like, we could run an update and something bad can happen. So don't do this on a production system. If you're using it as a production system, please back up your data. And if anything happens, don't come back and say, this blew up my machine. It is not released yet.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
There's one point I want to make. People mentioned 1804. In Dan's case for Ubuntu, there is not an upgrade path, if I understand correctly, because of the major change. 1804 for Ubuntu is not going to be on an upgrade path.
Yeah, that is not. That won't be a way to upgrade there. We did some early testing with that when 1810 came out, and it's technically possible, but it won't work right. Let's put it that way. You'll have a lot of issues, so we can't really support that because we know it's not going to work. So the idea there is, make backups, save things off, and do a fresh install.
So I called a couple people out just because I assumed they would want to or had been trying. Has anyone else tried 2004 in here yet?
So Draugr OS, the next version, will be based off of 24. And I have been testing it extensively on everything. It boots up lightning fast. It works great. I honestly can't see any reason other than the fact that it's not released. I can't see any reason why you couldn't go ahead and run it if you were willing to take that risk.
That's the risk. I mean, that's just it, right?
Yeah, because there are going to be bugs because it's not released yet, and I have not seen those bugs. But just because I haven't seen those bugs doesn't mean other people won't. But I have tested this on a Core i5 with a GTX 1050 Ti, a Core 2 Duo with an 8400 DT. I've tested it in a VM. It's worked everywhere. The only bug I'm having is the NVIDIA 390 drivers are refusing to compile with the 5.4 kernel or the 5.6 kernel. So I'm stuck with NoView, but I got Wi-Fi working with Broadcom. But that could literally just be the kernels, because the 5.6 is one I compiled myself, and the 5.4 is the canonical sanctioned low latency kernel.
That's a good point, though, because we're talking low level stuff here, right? The kernels themselves, right? So this is a moving target in a lot of ways, and if something like that changes, fundamentally things can go wrong. It's not just like a package might change. I mean, we're talking core architecture might change in some way. So
and it is definitely usable. I have it. I have 2004 based Draugr OS running on my MacBook. I don't have the NVIDIA drivers running. It is using NoView. But the graphics card is so low powered, I'm okay with that. I'm not expecting to run Doom. I'm not expecting to run Tomb Raider or anything like that. I can run Mind Test, and so far that's the only game that I've found that's, actually a more graphically intensive game, not like Klondike or something like that, that I can actually play. But that's hardware difficulties. That's not software. Software-wise, everything I've seen is running perfectly fine, other than that one NVIDIA driver not building, and it's an older unsupported NVIDIA driver, so that may not be an issue.
Yeah, I have that issue on one of my old laptops. It's just not supported anymore, so I have to use Nouveau, and it kind of works, but not really. Yeah.
I will say a couple things though. I had been away from Linux for several months now, and this is the first release that I really felt like coming back for. It's really that good.
Well, you said you actually, so yes, I think that's important, and I think that's interesting that you had that reaction. But I also think you said that you went back into Windows or something and then came right back because you weren't sure.
Ooh, where's that mute button?
I had booted back into Windows for a little while, and I was just like, this kind of sucks, and comparatively, and just went back over, and I'm like, man, this is comfy. But so basically, as people said, there could be issues, but honestly, if you love your country, you'll run it.
There you go.
Well, and so what's the importance? Why are we really talking about this other than, maybe we're excited and have some Ubuntu folks here? The importance is that if you run this now, if you are willing to do this, and if you're running it on hardware, so much the better, but, run it in a virtual machine if that's your preference. When you find things and you send those reports, like Adam said, a lot of them are already reported, which is good, but having more people report the same one gives it a higher priority.
That makes it that much better.
Yeah, if you take the time now, that gives them the remaining time that they're working through this to polish those things up, to fix those things. They only have so many machines, so many people working there, so many testers that are doing this work. The more people that get to it now, the better the release itself will be.
Absolutely.
Bill, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Well, you said exactly what I was going to say. I have a certain subset of machines. I test a lot of different. I test most of the flavors, but I have a very limited amount of machines. Thomas just talked about the machine that he has with certain hardware configurations. Everyone has a different. There's all kind of different machines out there, and there are some very, very dedicated testers. Chris Guevaric, I think I'm saying his name right. Chris tests so many distros, but Chris only has a certain subset. You have machines that I don't have access to. You have machines like Dan, anybody has access to. Test them. Let us know what's happening on your specific hardware so that we can maybe go, oh, we didn't see that because we didn't have access to that, so we never tested against it. We may need to make a little change. There's still 6 to 7 weeks. So there's a lot of stuff that can get ironed out. I know for a fact that Martin Wimpress, who's the head of the desktop for Canonical, wants this release to be as good as it can be. And I know everyone that works on the flavors wants the same thing. And the more help, I'm just a little cog in a very bigger wheel. The more help that we get, and the more help that the Ubuntu Mate team gets, the more help that Ubuntu gets, helps everyone. So please test. I put the ISO tracker URL up in the chat. It's pretty simple. If you really want to, take a few minutes, download an ISO, run through those tests, and let us know, did it pass or was there a failure? Put the little description in, and if something bad happens, go through the steps, report a bug. It's not really that hard. You do have to create an account, but it only takes you a couple minutes, and it helps everyone that uses these products.
And I think sometimes too, people maybe think, well, what am I going to contribute? Like, what is me running this? And if you remember for 1910, Adam actually found a fairly serious problem, right? Where what was it, Adam?
It was the 32-bit stuff wasn't enabled by default. So when you install like Steam and stuff,
yeah, that was a big bug, Adam. That was a lot of people responded to that bug.
Yeah, so I mean, that was Adam just doing exactly what he just did. He downloaded it pre-release,
playing them Vigi games,
tried it out, and yeah.
Yeah, and if you're a visual person, I'll just put a link in the YouTube chat. Alan Pope did a very good set of videos on a quick introduction to reporting bugs in Ubuntu. And he had a couple of weeks whereby he was just sitting there running through the test sheet on the link that I think Bill's put up, and we can go to that as well. And you just literally pick the test you want to do, run through it, answer the questions, click submit, and you've run some tests that will really help Ubuntu out. One tip I will give you, though, is you will have to type a lot what your system information is so that it lets them know what you're running it on. So have copied in a little notepad somewhere your system specs, like the basic processor, how much memory, whether it's hard disk, virtual machine, or whatever. And then you can just copy and paste that into each bug as you send it up. And it really is quite simple. I've probably done about 5 or 6 now, and they're very, very simple. Really, really easy. So get out there and have fun.
And I can say that the developers or product managers, as they're called in this case, they do take and read all of those reports and take the information from there and use that and pay attention to what bugs are out there, and hopefully so they can have a smooth release. That's the idea.
So on a completely unrelated note, it's a distro note, but it's not Ubuntu. Manjaro had a release 19.0 last week, and just wanted to mention the fact that that was out there, and that, you know, we've had some Manjaro folks on before. Rocco's had them on Linux Spotlight. And so if you like Manjaro, if you haven't tried it out, it's pretty nice. They've done some, I mean, Manjaro's thing is that they take the desktop environments and customize them quite a bit, put a lot of different software on the system. So they're giving you a nice, you know, base system to start with. A couple interesting things to me was being interested in GNOME recently. They've put a desktop switcher. So if you remember when we tried Farron, and the ability to switch your desktop layout very easily. So they have something like that in GNOME now. That's right on their welcome screen. Really neat things that, you know, the theme will change colors throughout the day. The wallpaper changes colors. So the level of polish and just attention to detail in Manjaro is pretty impressive, always has been to me. And this latest release has been pretty impressive. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to take a look at it yet or has any feedback, but I personally found it pretty compelling. So.
That's cool.
Crickets.
Yeah. No,
okay.
I can't say.
No, I haven't had
I have.
it. So, I mean, that sounds cool. Yeah. You sold it.
Yeah.
Eric, I'll talk about that. So we've just talked about how good the Ubuntu community is. So Manjaro has a nice setup. They have a wiki, they have a forum. Their forum has a lot of very knowledgeable people who are actually pretty nice. So Arch has this sometimes of a bad reputation, and sometimes it's not deserved, because there are a heck of a lot of great Arch users who impart so much information to people. But the Manjaro forum has a great deal of information, and you know, we've had the Manjaro guys on here who are so nice and helpful. And you know, there's the three, the GNOME, XFCE, and the KDE, or the three, I guess
the core, the sort of main.
Yeah, they're the
distros.
primary.
Yeah.
But they have a great community, and the community, the people that are doing the community are actually part of the core Manjaro team. So their Mate build is really nice.
And the 19.0 release of that is out as well. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, they are a tremendous group of people, and there's just a great deal of information. I really like running their testing. So they have three different, the sort of in the same way you'd go with Debian. You have the stable testing and the basically straight Arch builds. So what they do is they take anywhere from a few days to a couple weeks to look at packages. Once they're happy with the packages that Arch has, they add them into the Manjaro stream. If you go to the testing site release, you're much closer. You're about 2 or 3 days behind what Arch is doing. And then pure Arch, you know, you're basically getting maybe 24 hours behind what Arch is getting. Now, a nice little fact that people don't know, Mate 1.24 was released into Manjaro several days before it was officially available in Arch. So there's just, I mean, those guys are doing so awesome.
Yeah, this isn't an exact term, but I kind of call it either slow rolling or semi-rolling. And it basically just means that, yes, they're taking the mainline Arch packages, but like you said, they have unstable testing and then stable, and they sort of promote it through those steps. And they may withhold stable, the stuff that's in testing, to push the stable for quite a while if there are things they need to work through. And the reason they do that is that for all of the people that might be afraid of running a true rolling system like Arch, where, you know, you might get 3, 4, 5 updates a day, it's only going to be a couple packages, but it could be a lot. Sometimes it feels like they're just pushing things out, and it's up to you to manage all of that, right? Do I really want to do this update? And I think the thing that that Manjaro does that makes that a better situation is they have that cadence. They have things pushing through this series, and a lot of their users, me included, will just run testing, because I want to be able to give back and say this broke, or this doesn't work the way it should. That gets fixed, and then the majority of people using Manjaro who are unstable, when those packages come through, it's already they're not going to see that, right? And so that's why I think Manjaro is onto something interesting. And like Zeb said earlier, you know, Arch can be a little off-putting because you do have to do so much work yourself. Whereas Manjaro, like I said, they put a lot of time and effort into polishing their desktop, picking a selection of packages, curating things, and then to Bill's point, yeah, the forum. I mean, in terms of activity on a forum, I mean, I'm just looking at it from a Linux distro standpoint, but it's incredible. If you don't check the forum for a couple of days, it looks like Telegram. There's so many new posts in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity. It's incredible. You're right. Yeah, very cool. It's one of the top distros in my mind as far as I'm concerned. So I can, yeah, I think it's something to test, something to check out. Not to switch the gears too much, but keeping in mind with the testing, Rocco actually slid me a note here across the table, and there is this new indie game, if you will, that is asking for Linux testing to take place. This developer wants to, he runs Linux, apparently, according to a Reddit post that Rocco sent me, and he wants to give Linux like a first-class citizen sort of treatment. So he's asking for people to get in there and test it. I'll post some links here. But what do you all think of that?
I'm down.
I think it's really, really. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm down for it. Like if someone's giving us that treatment, it's like how many times have we had games that were there and then a company show up, buy them out, and then rip it out from underneath of us? You know, I'm not bitter about Rocket League at all.
Hand it over. I'll give it a good one.
Well, so Zeb, you know, you have a QA background, and you know what companies what they go through. You know, the cost of QA, the difficulty in staffing. I know the automation is a huge factor in QA, but something like a video game, I mean, that's a really complicated thing to test. So,
yeah, it's. I mean, I can only speak for generic software and the complexities that are involved in game development. Just take everything like that to a whole nother level, because not only are you trying to develop a piece of software, but you're trying to develop a piece of software that interacts with a multitude of different graphical environments, with graphical servers, and linking all that gameplay together. Now, Dan, do we know, is this a one-man band, or has he got a little group of people helping him? Because if it's just a one-man band, he needs all the help he can get.
Yeah, it looks like it's a one person show. I'm not seeing where he's talking about a whole team. I haven't really got into it a whole lot, but it looks really cool. It's a multiplayer game, so you can play 2 to 4 people. It looks pretty simple, but you know, the idea is to survive the level and move on. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and what's really interesting as well is Rocco's also he's busy slipping these notes across the table tonight. He's saying that it's free until Monday, and he's looking for feedback. So even if you're not a gamer, just take a couple of minutes out of your time, maybe spend an hour, download it, give it a whirl, and even if you just write back and say this is not my type of game, good luck, keep it going. We've talked about it in the past before. Even a simple thank you can help a developer stay motivated and moving forward, and just getting on with your life. And if you are into games and you're a heavy gamer, then give him some feedback, let him know where it might be improved. Try not to be too critical, because it is, I mean, there's always that fine line between being critical and then having constructive criticism. So, sending an email saying, oh yeah, downloaded your game, what a lot of old tut. That doesn't help anyone. If you download it and you don't like it, don't say anything. So yeah, but give it a go. Just give him some feedback. And if people within the Reddit community can see Linux jumping in and helping, maybe we'll get a few more people who try it and have some better games to play.
Yeah, this game actually looks pretty cool as far as like it's got that retro feel. It's kind of got an ice climbers deal where the stage is scrolling up, but you have to jump platform to platform and connect like 3 or 4 different platforms of your color every time you jump on one. And so you have 3 or 4 other people all trying, and then they fall out from underneath of you. So it's like it's a strategy and a platformer and all that stuff. It looks kind of cool. It's got that
Hang on.
vibe.
Is this something that Ryan's just thrown in, and he's trying to? Is this a pixelated game that's going to tweak me?
Dude, it definitely is a pixel game. It looks awesome.
It's very 8-bit, yeah.
At least he didn't hand it to you.
Yeah, that's true.
No, it looks cool, and he's got a Discord, and it looks like he's got some forums and stuff too. So, like Zeb said, get in there, give it a test, and give him a little feedback. I think it's great.
Yeah, he's got a way of right now you can donate a little bit to it, even through PayPal or with a card. It says here. I'm gonna throw him a couple dollars just for the fact of, it's free right now and he's supporting us, and so he's asking for our support. I'm gonna do it. Yep. No pressure, guys. No pressure.
That's a cool thing. Is if you like the game, throw him $1 or $2. You don't have to throw $1,000 because you don't have that. But if we get a bunch of people giving a little bit of money, it is so awesome. It goes back to what the elementary guys are trying to do with that app center. If you can get developers that can make a nice little living developing applications, games in Linux, you're going to see a lot more and a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, is Adam sitting there already playing it? I had a guess he might be.
Dude, I'm totally playing it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got it on itch. Yeah, and just totally playing it right now.
I could tell you were concentrating on something. Yeah.
We found the Tony of the gaming world. Adam downloads games and gets them done and installed before the end of the show.
Is this going to be our bonus challenge for the next 2 weeks? Like, if you don't do the distro, at least try this game.
That's a good idea. Good. Yeah, I like that. We'll mention that in the post-show notes. Yeah. Just one other thing as well before we close up, because I notice we're getting very close to 3:00. Rocco would like you to think on the following and maybe bring something along next week. We'd like you to think about one YouTube channel, tech site, person, or something that has helped you out. Now, it doesn't have to be Linux related. So in other words, is there something or someone that you want to give a shout out to that you found extremely useful in getting over a particular problem, getting over a hurdle, somebody who inspires you, just by way of a different topic, and maybe some of it won't be Linux related. So think about it for next week. And then if you can, bring along something that you've used in the last, let's say 5 years, that's helped you just keep going and move along. And it's not going to be a sob story week, but something that you find inspiring and thought, hey, I watched this and it was really, really fun, and I've gone back there. It might even be as simple as that. You found a great YouTube channel or a great website that makes you smile and makes you laugh. Let us know next week, and we'll have a little discussion on that.
Very cool.
I like that.
All right, Bill, I hear you have some information on Linux Spotlight.
I was going to save that, but I'll do it now.
Do it now.
So someone who is under the weather and not currently talking to us right now does this crazy show, and he gets some really interesting guests. Last week, he had Jacob Renneker. I believe it's... oh, man, I probably just butchered his name. I'm sorry, Jacob.
Rocker.
So I got to hear about Jacob previously on a Brunch with Brent, and Rocco kind of found that really interesting and had him on. It is such a positive, happy vibe on how to not look at just not Linux, but just life in general, because they like veer off in a access totally away from Linux in this show for a good amount of time. And Jacob has a great he's a veteran who has, I mean, he mentions it, he says it in there, he has PTSD, and how the community has helped him get out of that dark place. And his just energy, positivity, is incredible. And Rocco really brings it. There's a great conversation. Rocco is that, he's a great interviewer. He really, really is. He brings out stuff in people. And the whole Linux Spotlight show is just this. You have people like Martin and Popey who are, deep in the Linux community, Linux distributions. You have Jacob who is in the community, but he uses all of the different things. He's not just pure Linux. Among anybody else, Dan, you've been on there, Eric, you've been on, Adam has been on there. It is just such an awesome thing to hear. You get so many different Barb has been a guest. There's so many people, and it's just so awesome. And Rocco really brings that out. And, on that wavelength, guess what? Rocco braved it out and has another one for us next week. So, and this one is actually really kind of important to me because it has a mate relationship. And if you listen to the podcast, Going Linux, my brain is fried. It is goinglinux.com. And in that podcast, you're going to find someone who talks about what? Going Linux. And you put me on a really bad thing here. Sorry. I wasn't prepared for this. So Larry Bushy, who is the host of Going Linux, his co-host is a guy named Bill, and they have a great podcast just bringing people up to speed, beginning users. And Larry also writes the Ubuntu Mate documentation. So he actually produces books that you can buy, and based off those documents, he has the help that you see when you go into Ubuntu Mate and the welcome screen. He writes all this great documentation for us. So he is the guest. Larry is fun. I deal with him, in the Ubuntu Mate development channel. I talk to him a little bit, and he creates bugs for us. He's really, really, really somebody who helps Mate out a lot. I'm looking forward to hearing the conversation, and I'm sorry that I butchered that so badly.
I don't think you did, Bill.
You sound enthusiastic, which you should be, because it is. You said there's been so many different people on, from just general community members like myself all the way up to developers of distributions. And if there's a personality in Linux that that you've seen, then there's a chance that they're on there. And it's a great show because you get so much background about how they got started. So Thomas said earlier, right? We know, and then there's what we think we don't know, and then so we always look at people, and I do this because I look at developers or people who are just so much more technical than I am, and think like they're wizards, right? In some way. And the reality is that they started on a path, right? They found a project, something that really interests them. We look at young people that are doing amazing things. I mean, Farron, we always talk about Farron being such a young person who's been doing this for years, and how much he's accomplished. And it excuse me, it's not about age. It's not about that people are, somehow smarter. I think it's just they have a dedication, they have an interest, and to hear about how they progressed from not knowing how to do these things to learning and how they applied that. It's inspirational. It's interesting. It's a really great show. And of course it's Rocco. So it's fun. It's friendly. It's warm. So not to oversell it. And Bill's already done that for me, but it's definitely, if you haven't checked it out, and what's he up to now? 30 some, I mean, it's amazing how it just keeps going. Right. And to him, from what I can tell, like he has hundreds more people that he wants to interview, and it will be him someday too, whether he likes it or not.
Oh, that's already on the cards. Don't worry about that. And Rocco knows it. He's not getting away with that one.
All right. All right.
So, has anybody got anything in particular that they really want to bring up? You've got 4 minutes 25 seconds before we start the goodbyes.
Yeah, that game is hard. Either that or I'm really terrible at it. Like you have to jump on the platforms and claim them for your color, and you have like opponents that are also hopping on the platforms. So there's kind of like this. You don't want to jump up too high because then they can just go behind you and claim your stuff. So you're almost like always dancing on the bottom because the rows go like they're always scrolling down, and whenever they get to the bottom of the screen, they fall off, and you get points for whichever ones are your color. So
Yeah.
you kind of got to dance around the bottom to not have your stuff taken over, but you also don't
Look
want
at
to stick
Paul.
around.
I was just about to say that's interesting because Paul R is now sharing his screen.
I was also
It's
going to
really
say
clever how he does that.
on their website, they had just a little gift type thing. And it looked like on the ones on the right, there was something shooting at you also.
Yeah, it
Your
looks like
opponent
they-
can. Yeah.
It looks like the characters
And
have
there's
their own
something like
powers.
whatever it is. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I'm not a gamer, guys, but I thought this was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely kind of cool.
Game.
Yeah.
This is the kind of game that you could just get into, right? You don't have to. Yeah.
This is the kind of game
it's just a simple game, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think
Adam,
that's what I like about it.
Sorry, I noticed a comment in the YouTube chat that someone said, "Oh, you have to subscribe, you have to sign up to a website for this," and that put me off.
Yeah,
Could you just explain to them what itch.io is and why it would be a good thing to sign up for it?
Yeah, itch.io is like a very like kind of homebrew-esque game site. A lot of indie develop, and there's not just the smaller games, but there's others. It's basically a site for a lot of like either open source or just kind of fan games and stuff. And you can get all kinds of games from there, but it's a legit site. It's not like sketchy at all. Like they have a client for Linux as well that you can download from their website. It's actually a really nice site, and you can pay what you want for a lot of the games and stuff. It's really good to support indie developers on that site.
Mm-hmm. So is it? I'm guessing it's like a miniature version of Steam or Lutris or something along those lines.
I believe the games are generally DRM free or maybe entirely DRM free on itch.io.
Yeah, so it's not like you're subscribing to a website that's going to then bombard you with offers about
Correct,
this, that, and the other, and scam.
Yeah, you're
It's
just
a
creating an
proper,
account to-
legitimate website. So yeah, don't be put off by that. Take your time, sign up. You might find another couple of games that you can download, and that'd be
there's lots
cool.
on there. There's lots on there.
So we just have a few precious moments left, but I have to check in with Tony. He's concentrating quite a bit. Give us the status report, Tony.
Yes, it's installed.
And which one did you go for?
I just thought I'd have a peek at the Deepin desktop.
Which version of Arco did you grab?
I went for the easy option, Arco B with Deepin.
Gotcha.
Nice. And that's the beauty of Arco. You can have it easy or you can have it hard. So pick your flavor. We'll talk about it next week. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, I think Tony needs to up his game. He has to download all of them. And
I was going to ask if he had all of them.
Not yet.
He has 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With the 2 weeks, the chances are I probably will try at least one other version.
Well, it's lucky that he reduced the number of ISOs from 35 down to 18. Just say that.
Oh my. Well, Zeb, why don't you kick us off?
Well, thank you, Rocco, for putting this on. I know you didn't do it this week, but you do it for us every single week. I'm glad to be back. I really enjoyed it. I really missed you guys and girls.
We missed you too.
I didn't realize how much until I've been sat here watching you, listening to you, chatting to you, getting your feedback. It's been absolutely awesome. And Eric and Dan, thank you very much for easing me back in lightly and taking most of the show. And it was really fantastic to see you all again. And we'll see you next week.
Well, Rocco, obviously, I'm sorry that you're having this this illness, I mean, it's been a couple weeks now, and I know it's no fun to be sick, and the weather in the Northeast can be a trick with that too. So I certainly hope you're feeling better. I don't mind helping and filling in, but boy, it's not the same without you. So I can't wait to have you back. And as I say every week, and Zeb didn't say it, even though he was here, this is my community. I love seeing you guys, participating with you guys, just being here. And thank you for the continued privilege to do that. I really appreciate it. Have a great week.
Dan,
Thanks, Eric.
your last words.
Yeah, thanks. I just echo everything Eric says. Pretty much. It's great being here. We miss Rocco, even though he hasn't been here. He's still been here and influencing us behind the scenes, which is great because I'm not sure how great the show would be without that. So appreciate that, Rocco. Even though you're sick, you're still here. And thanks to Zeb and Eric and Bill and everybody else that helps out here too. So look forward to Arco next week. And I'm probably not going to try them all, but I'm going to try to give a couple of fair shakes. So.
All right, Tony, I know you're concentrating.
Yeah, I can only echo what Zeb, yourself, and Dan have said. It's sorry to hear that Rocco's not well, but the show's gone on, which is great, and Rocco has had some input. And as you've said, it wouldn't be the same without him. I hope he's better for next week. It's great to see you back, Zeb. You were missed, and it's also not quite the same without you. So I'm glad to see you back. Apart from that, take care, everyone, till next week, and I look forward to it in a week's time. Oh, and one last thing. Don't forget, next week is the European version. So it's a double dose next week. So that's even better.
Absolutely. Chris, you were unusually quiet tonight.
Yes, I was distracted with some other activities that I needed to take care of, but I was listening through the whole thing. Just didn't really have a whole lot to add to the conversation. Rocco, get better soon. Sorry you missed tonight. Saw you hitting the internal chat there. So just do whatever you need to do to get better, and don't envy. Last thing I want to say is that Gotta Catch 'Em All is that copyrighted. But really, for those in the U.S., it's Spring Forward tonight, so make sure that you, or actually tomorrow morning, so set your clocks forward an hour before you go to bed.
I completely forgot. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Chris, because that means, next week's show will be, well, both shows actually will be at a different time, if you will. The same Eastern time, just a different time for everybody else. Anyway, Dan, last word? You're muted. There we go.
Okay. Rocco, I know you're listening, and I really hope you get well soon and you get blessed and you're up and dancing around. I know how these colds and flus are up in the Northeast. Once you get a bad one, it takes a good month to get over it. I want to especially thank all of Rocco's special helpers that make the show work. Without you guys, I don't think we'd have much of a show. Zeb, I'm really happy to see that you're back too. I'm happy to see you everywhere, actually. And Arco Linux, I got the B version. I got it in cinnamon and budgie. So we're going to take a look at both of them. And with that said, on to the next person.
Good choices, Dan. I like that. Paul, I saw you were playing the game. How's that going?
Yeah, it's a pretty addicting game. Yeah, that site doesn't bother me. You got to sign up. That's no big deal, you know. But yeah, it was a good site. I've been looking for some different games and stuff, and but yeah, great show tonight, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Yeah, I hadn't heard of it either, so that was a good pickup.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Colin, last word.
Better look away, Rocco. We're just about closed for business.
He's going to be coughing again, Colin. Thanks for that.
I hope you get better soon, Rocco. That's no good being sick. So get better soon, mate. And Zeb, good to see you back. And thanks very much, Dan and Eric. Great job tonight. And looking forward to trying Arco Linux again. I've tried the D version. I've made a few videos about that. I'm sure they were all to do with Arco Linux D. So I'm not sure which one to go for this time because there's so many of them. So I'll spin the wheel during the week and see what happens.
So it sounds like you're the perfect candidate for the build your own install.
Is that the B? Is that the B? The B is build your own.
No. There's a new. He's got Arco Linux. He's got Arco Linux B, where you just download the complete desktop of your choice. He's got Arco Linux D, where you start off with a base and then build it up from there. But now he's got build your own install.
Yes.
So you start off with a basic, you create your own ISO, and then you install it.
I'm just not sure which one you download for that.
Is it B, build your own install, BYOI.
Yeah. All right. I'll check it out.
See if you can find something like that. Yeah.
I might try that.
Colin, if you go to the select download Arco Linux B, you will get a page that has Arco Linux B with every single desktop that they offer.
Okay.
So that's it, and then just go and download whichever desktop whichever Arco Linux B version and the desktop. So it's like it's got LXQT and Mate and OpenBox and Plasma and a whole bunch of others.
Yeah, no, this is
I
the
think
next,
I saw.
This is the next level down, though, Barbara. This is where you start off with a base and build your own installation ISO.
Or it says build your own installation or download.
Right, gotcha.
And I chose or download B with my desktop of choice.
And you can put all those into the Draugr Wheel of Misfortune.
Of course.
Well, we need a second wheel for Arco.
Colin can make a video about basket weaving and we could all duplicate it with no problem.
Anyway, have a good week, everybody, and shall see you next week. And we'll see how we go with that. I'll work it out somehow. I'll find it there somewhere.
All right, I'm expecting at least one video, Colin. So.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Eris. What are your last words?
Thank you, everybody who makes the stream possible, especially Rocco, who, despite being sick, is still here with us. Looking forward to Arco, and thank you.
All right. Thanks, Eris. Thomas, last words?
Well, first off, Rocco, get well soon. Second off, Zeb, welcome back, my friend. It's so good to see you again. Other than that, I'm going to be really quick with this. Draugr OS is having a beta release in 2 weeks, people. So I'm going to be begging for people to test it out and let me know what they think and give me bug reports, because I need to get this thing out the door. And I can tell you right now, it is way better already, because you don't have to deal with that stupid installer anymore. It's got a better one. So have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Thomas. Jason, you were also unusually quiet this evening. Let's hear some last words. What do you got?
Oh.
Can't hear you. You're unmuted in Zoom, but not in the PC.
Maybe that's why he's quiet.
Could be the only way to keep him quiet. Nope. We'll come back. Bill?
Rocco, please get better. We miss you. Dan and Eric, thank you for doing all that you did today. Zeb, welcome back. I don't think you really totally understand how important you are to our community, and it is good to have you on. It really, really is.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Jason, I don't know. You back yet? No. Okay. Well, thanks. Anyway, Barbara?
Okay, Rocco, I do hope you start to feel better because being sick is a big waste of time. And we all know that. And welcome back, Zeb. And thank you, Dan and Eric. And I have downloaded Arco Linux B with the Mate desktop.
Nice.
Excellent. Vince, I know begrudgingly you're going to have to try Arco, but, hang in there, man. You'll make it.
I'll try and think of something to say next week. Rocco, rest up, mate. Really sad to hear that you're not feeling that well. We're missing you. Zeb, been really missing you as well here, especially. Even though some of us have been poking you on your own streams. Thank you, Dan and Eric, for filling in some really big shoes tonight. And everyone in chat, everyone here in Zoom, love you guys.
Thanks, Vince. Adam, sorry to interrupt your game, but last word.
It's all good, man. Actually, yeah, okay. So yeah, Rocco, hope you feel better soon. Next time, choose not to get sick. And everybody else, have a wonderful night. And don't forget to wash your hands and not touch your face. Enjoy.
Good man. Hey, look, it's Steve.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's going. Itch.io, my son, I just double checked with him. We've ordered stuff from him in the past from that website. So it's very legit. Zeb, glad to see you back. Glad to see you posting in the forum again, my friends. Good to see you. Rocco, you take care, and hopefully I see some of you guys in the morning.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve. Scrap, last words?
Yeah, sorry I got here late. I'm back working at the kitchen again. So
Hey,
washing
it's
dishes.
good to have you here.
Yeah. So I didn't know anybody was sick or missing, but it's good to see, someone's back. And unfortunately, this weather up here, I'm in Ohio too, and this Midwest stuff is crazy. And if you can't tell, I'm a little more bassy than normal. And it's not because I've turned it up like someone told me to last week. But my kids have had it, and I've had it, and every couple of weeks we've just been rotating all through it. It's not fun, but we're making it through. Little development. My friend that came in last week from the Aquarium Guys podcast. They've now got me on editing for them. So
Nice.
yeah, so that it frees him up to produce that show. And if you're into aquariums and stuff, on top of your geeking out with Linux, you can also get Reef Pi, which is something I want to get into. But come check out Aquarium Guys podcast and tell me how good, how awful or how great my editing is. Throw me some tips or something.
I haven't listened to the latest one, but I did go and check it out, and it's actually a really fun podcast. They do a good job on that. Yeah.
Yeah, the latest one that's out, we had the president from the Minnesota Aquarium Society on there, and he was talking about disaster prep for your aquarium, and then in his case, he's moving. So how do you move aquariums and your fish? And then he was also talking about an expo coming up on March 21st there in Minneapolis. So if that's all stuff you're into, come check it out. Aquarium Guys podcast. We're number 18 on the iTunes for animals and pets right now.
Wow. Good job. All right. Well, we'll listen to it and then come back and pick it apart for you.
Nice.
All right, Jason, one more try. Nope. Wait, I could hear you plugging and unplugging the mic, so it's got to be something else. But anyway, we are out of time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week. We definitely look forward to being back with Rocco. Keep in mind, as several people have said, we have 2 shows next week. We have the Europe edition, which is normally at 3 p.m. Eastern. And translate that to your time. And Zeb, can you help me out there maybe? What time would that be, UK?
Yeah, in the UK, that's going to be 8 p.m. GMT, so 9 p.m. if you're in Europe.
Excellent. Thank you. And then,
And
of course,
unfortunately, I'm away at my brother's for the whole of next weekend, so I will be missing both biddles, unfortunately. I keep trying to tell my other half, don't pick the second Tuesday in every month. And what do people pick? Or the second Saturday in every month, rather. Or the first, whichever one it is. I can't remember now. It's
That's the
too
second.
early in the morning. But yeah, no, I keep saying to him, please don't book anything there, because you know what I do. But hey ho, such is life.
well, hey, we got you this week, so we can wait 2 more weeks, but we'll see you then. And Rocco, obviously, get well. We'll do this again if we have to, but boy, we miss having you here. So anyway, everybody have a wonderful week, and as Rocco would say, long live Linux. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night.
I'm doing a voice wave.
See you all.
I'll do the royal wave for Zeb.
Cheers.
Here's all.